I've been F bombing once in a while. That's fine. No.
It's okay. Finally, I'll have a excuse to click the explicit box. So far, all my podcasts have been clean, so I'll finally
I
tick
don't know
that
if you
box.
can get an advertising podcast done with
With
your beep button is going to be
without the
useful.
F bomb, huh? That's okay. That's okay. Namaskar. My name is Vishal Mehra, and you have just tuned into the Indian F bomb. No, 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 no. This is the Indian Ad Geek. I'm coming to you live from lush green Bali in the middle of my annual vacation. In case you don't know what we're all about, there's an intro episode on the same app where you're listening to this, about 7 minutes long. That should help. My guest is the co founder of India's most talked about agency. And boy, do they walk the talk. It's the creative agency that's rewriting the rule book on innovation and imagination. Gautam's ideas don't just think outside the box, they redesign the box, give it a fresh coat of paint, turn it into a billboard that's everyone talking about. Gautam, very warm welcome to you for the Indian Ad Geek. My congratulations to you and the talented grid of companies for a terrific showing at Curious.
Vishal, thank you for having me. I've seen the rigor and the effort that you put in onto the other podcast. So this is bound to be all sorts of exciting. And I'm very, very happy to be your first guest. Thank you for the privilege.
The privilege is all mine. Let's start from what made you fall in love with advertising and how did you get started?
Man, I don't know if I genuinely wouldn't describe it as falling in love. It was certainly not love at first sight. I mean, a little bit of backstory. My father's been in advertising ever since I was born. In fact, I think that the year that he started his agency in Trivandrum, Kerala, coincided with the year that I was born. So I'm second generation advertising, so to speak. And I remember my father's first office being on top of our home when I was growing up. So, and I've said this elsewhere as well. I've grown up with like proofs lying around the house and him scribbling little sort of concepts and old school advertising, so to speak, right? Like print ads and commercials getting shot. So I've grown up in that world over the years, as I mean, during my childhood, especially the first few years, because the office was right above our home. I mean, I remember getting back from school and sometimes getting off at his office, waiting for my mom to pick me up and take me back home. So stuff like that, right? So it's always felt like it's been in my blood. And it always felt to me like this was my natural step to go into. And my father's dream was that I one day make it in Ogilvy. And I was having this joke with Hepzibah from Ogilvy the other week when I met her. That I mean, it was such a dream for me, and I interviewed and they'd rejected me early on. That's the story for later. But yeah, that's how it started. I studied commerce in school. I mean, in college, and it so happened that so I'm also therefore a product of nepotism. My dad got me my first job with, funnily enough, with the person whose first job was with my dad, which is Anil Nair from Law and Kenneth at that point in time. Right now it's Saatchi and Saatchi L&K. Anil used to be president of L&K, and he was kind enough to offer me a management trainee position. That's how it started. Vishal, I hated my first few years in advertising. It was tough. I'd moved from Bangalore. I mean, first I was living in Kerala, then I moved to Bangalore for school and college, and I moved to Bombay for my first job, and it was genuinely a culture shock. And I mean, it was the small town boy sort of cliche that you've sort of seen. It's exactly that, right? It took me a while to get used to it, and it felt like a totally different world. And I was struggling the first few months. I was wondering how my dad's been in this sort of industry for years and years and not hated it. It took me a while. It took me almost a year to begin enjoying it. But Lawn Kenneth was an amazing place by the end of it. I learned, so my real sort of early years of learning of advertising was there. And so that was possibly like I've never been to advertising school. So I'd say I've not been to Micah or Xavier's or wherever else. So I'd give credit to L&K for being my institution, so to speak, for all my advertising learning. That's how it started. I did my first job was a couple of years there, and I went to study. I came back to India. I wanted to get into digital marketing at that point in time. This was 2009, 10. Nobody would give me a job at that point in time. The only place that did ultimately hire me was this shop called Web Chutney, now legendary Web Chutney, who no longer call that, but yeah, I mean legendary institution. And yeah, so I joined in a sales job, really. So my job was to pick up the phone and call clients and sell websites at that point in time. So I know there's a long-winded story, but that was, yeah, those were my early days in advertising, man.
Out of curiosity, what was the name of your dad's agency?
Oh, it's still there. It's not was, it still is. It's a small shop. It's about 20 people. It's in Trivandrum. It's called MediaMate. He still runs it, one of his businesses, but yeah, still exists.
Lovely. Gautam, Talented has been setting new benchmarks since it started. We have heard you talk about why you and PG felt Talented was needed. I don't want to go there. I want to know what was the aha moment you guys had to start Talented? And what was the time period you guys gave yourselves for it?
Yeah, it was funny because we, Siddharth, our dearest friend,
The founder, yeah.
and founder of Web Chutney and
Right.
CEO of Chutney at that point in time, it was in his own way, without directly telling me, he was kind of preparing me for the big job at Web Chutney for a while. I didn't know that's what he was doing at that point in time. And it so happened that I took the Web Chutney CEO job in January 2020, and we all know the uh, what happened in March 2020. So I walked into this new job with hopes and dreams and the things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to prove that the agency business could be run this way and done that way. And Dentsu was always a wonderful sort of network agency um, to be uh, for any independent to be acquired at that point of time. I mean, especially the early years, they just let us be. And I had a good equation with some of the senior Dentsu leadership at that point in time, especially Ashish Bhasin, and Siddharth himself, of course. So took the job, took the CEO job. Couple of months later, COVID hits. All my plans go, out right out of the window. And it turned out to be a completely firefighting year, as it was for a whole lot of other businesses, including the NC world, right? And somewhere along there, um, it did feel like Web Chutney was doing well as a company. It was some of our best years, incidentally, even creatively, during that little golden era of Web Chutney between 2019 and 2022. And it felt good. We were doing well. But I think a year into the job, and PG he was made chief creative officer at that point in time at Web Chutney as well. And somewhere along the way, it felt to both of us in our separately, and we hadn't discussed this until then, until the concept of talented came up, with the way that we wanted to run a creative agency and hire and manage creative people. It felt a complete sort of dissonance between that and the way that networks wanted to manage and arrange, so to speak, creative people into an organization. So that's where it started. There was a certain sort of mental dissonance at first, and uh, we had so many ideas in our heads as to what we wanted to execute and change the shape of the company and do this and do that. And it didn't feel possible. It was a company that we dearly loved. We were around 350 people at that point in time, Web Chutney. So it was me. I sort of did the blasphemous thing at that point in time and raised the topic of, hey, PG, what if we consider one day, you know? And it so happened that he'd also had these sort of fleeting thoughts in his mind at that point in time. And so that then sort of became bigger and bigger. And we used to meet for coffee. And there's this little joint down the road where I live. It's called Airlines. It's a legendary sort of breakfast spot in Bangalore down St. Mark's Road. We used to meet for breakfast a lot there. And that's really, I would say that was a birthplace of Talented, really. I don't know if you've ever been. And that's where it started. So I think a couple of months into that and throwing early sort of concepts in up, I mean, back and forth at each other. discussing deeply about what we would do differently if we had the chance and the money to start. And it took us a good 2, 3 months to get confident about the fact that we would be able to execute something. And so we had the chat, and we discussed this with everybody who mattered, above us and below us. And we'd given Dentsu almost a year's notice, really, at that point in time, and did the unthinkable. And that's the origin story of Talented. Funny thing was, it was also parallel to what we now think of as our sort of one of our life's greatest pieces of work, the Unfiltered History Tour, if you remember that work. That it also happened around the same time. So here we were on one hand sitting and executing one of the most important projects of our lives, and on the other hand, we also knew that, hey, you know,
That's like your swan song.
it could potentially be our swan song, our piece de resistance, so to speak. And yeah, I think it was timely. And looking back, I think it was the right time. And everybody left with their heads held high, and we're best of friends with most people from there. In fact, a lot of the, funnily enough, some of the people that we grew up with in Web Journey are now para-talented. The other Denso continues to do well as well. So yeah.
Yeah, all is well with the world. You've said the world does not need another agency, but a reimagined agency experience. Now, I want to divide my next question in two parts. What does that look like at Talented? For talent, we know about the remote model, we know about the ESOPs you have. Is there something else to it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I guess those are nice pillars, not the most important ones. Um, a reimagined experience, at least in our heads, was we knew that, I mean, the only moat that any creative agency has is really its people. And it did feel like, especially in the last 10, 15 years of advertising, the people bits have taken a backseat. We're losing talent. We don't attract the brightest and the best anymore. And it generally felt like how we approach employment and advertising in general is very primitive stuff. Like, I mean, it hasn't changed since the 60s and 70s, right? Even how we construct teams as design and copy and stuff like that, right? So for an industry that's supposed to be very innovative and creative, how we operate has remained very primitive. And that was really the starting point. I think some of the things that we've executed, and you called out a couple of them, we're not remote, we're remote active people. I mean, the idea is that we treat people like adults and expect them to get the work and come into office when they need to. We've certainly not imposed strict guidelines as to 2 days a week, 3 days a week, etc. Right? So yeah, I think remote active is a choice and a privilege that a lot of people talented use very well, I think. ESOPs, yeah, I mean, it's turned out to be nice because earlier this year we had the chance to sort of liquidate some of the and buy back some of the ESOPs, which is a beautiful personal moment for PG and I especially. It felt good, and it felt like we were living up to our early promises of what was just an idea then, right? When they got the grant letter, it was nothing. We were like a shop run by like these two boys. So that's nice. I think we've been trying to reimagine what pay looks like a lot. Essentially, it's just the simple things, man. I think none of that is very disruptive. Unfortunately, it seems disruptive because of how backward some of our historical processes have been in the industry. So it's yeah, it's some of that. And I think the residual sort of value of all of this and of employees generally having more skin in the game and feeling part of the company that they're building is going to show up in the work, is going to show up in how they work on client and businesses and brands. And that's why the clients will directly benefit from our internal policies more than anything. So the first 3 years, been almost 3.5 years now, a lot of our focus has been internal. Every time you see anything from talent, you're like, why the fuck are these guys so obsessed with themselves a lot? But it's genuinely the area where I feel maximum disruption can happen in the agency business. Focus on your internal policies, see how you can become better employers, see how you can attract the best and the brightest, and then see the direct impact that it's going to have on your clients. So that's been the focus. And I think that's where the sort of reimagine the agency experience line sort of was born, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Herb Keller, the co founder and CEO of Southwest. He used to say, your employees come first, and if you treat your employees right, guess what? Your customers come back, and that makes your shareholders happy.
I knew the
Absolutely.
aviation geek in you had to come out somewhere, but nice little.
I had
Guys,
to.
he has another podcast. It's called the Indian AV Geek. Check that out.
And for clients, how is the talented model different from agencies that they are used to working with? Maybe something your clients have told you?
Yeah, I think we've felt the after effects of all of these internal stuff, right? We also have famously have no designations internally. This falls in line with our principle of the best idea wins, not how you sell it or not who sells it, etc. Right? So one of the things that we wanted to experiment with really, and I mean, we still undecided on how this scales, is currently we don't have designations. Everybody's designated creative. Your job is creative, right? And so it feels like there is a little bit more of one of the side effects of that is a democratization of ideas, of who is allowed to pitch ideas, and they don't have to permit, you don't have to ask for permission in it for run to 2 3 levels of hierarchy before clients see it, stuff like that. And that's been a direct impact. I don't I think one of the because of that it feels also like um it feels every day to me, in fact, that I'm running an agency with incredibly high talent density because of the kind of people that we're able to attract. And I'm sure that's a direct effect of some of the internal policies and things like that. And and it feels like clients don't want yes men anymore, and they're prepared to listen to brave ideas, and they want speed and honesty, and they just want to speak with talented, sharp people. And we're trying to sort of usher back in the era of advertising where agency folks were smart folks that clients wanted in the room when big decisions were taken. We're not there yet as an industry or as a company, but that is most certainly the ambition. And that comes with the higher talent density, that comes with being on the ball. Um, yeah,
How is the talented business model different from places you've been before?
it is. Firstly, I'd say the costs are higher because the people are paid more and better. And it's almost like soft pressure on us to sort of think more deeply about our business model as well, right? So I like
And
that.
that's a credit to you, by the way. We've seen you talk about that. We've seen you talk about the minimum pay,
Yeah.
so many different forums, and
Yeah.
I think all of those things help uh, the industry a lot, and gets the talent that the industry desperately needs. So that's a credit to you and your team.
Yeah. No, I think that also sends a message that we want the best and the brightest, and that then sends a message to clients that the best and the brightest exist here, which gets us into more meetings and rooms and pitches and sort of, accounts. So I think it's all circular. I think everything has an effect on the other thing. We want to attract the best and the brightest. We want the best and brightest clients to sort of want us. I think our pricing will also reflect let's say, the higher pay, so to speak. We are a premium company. Clients understand that it is on us to sort of keep the momentum going and keep the work coming that um, sort of befits that kind of pricing. You know, we can't, I mean, like we're scared of mediocre average work. And because it will have a direct impact on our pricing strength over a period of time. So I like the soft pressure that all of these sort of pricing and costing decisions have on our work as well. Um, yeah, so the business model is slightly different from that point of view. We are also very, very friendlier towards the project model. I know it's a little bit of a, it's a little different from how some of the other agencies operate, even nationally, who tend to favor uh, purely for P&L sakes, retainers and the surety of 12 months of revenue than project models, which tend to sort of give you a couple of months of work and then disappear again. But I feel what that has done to us is, again, not take the work and the opportunity for granted, continue producing extremely top tier work over a period of time, which then attracts possibly even the same client to come back again and again over a period of time. So that's another major business model difference. We more projects over retainers at this point in time. It could change as we scale. We also don't do man-hour based pricing anymore. You run your own shop. Historically, even advertising, I've grown up in an advertising era where everybody's got a price, right? Like the client knows how much this guy's getting paid and the multiplier you're adding on top of it, etc. The client procurement is asking for exact salaries. You know, we stopped doing that. I mean, it's like we want to price for outcomes, and we want to say that, hey, this is what we believe that this brief and our solutions on this brief are going to effect for you, and this is what we believe it should be priced at. Basis our historical evidence of how we've executed projects of a similar nature before. Yeah, I mean, a lot of tiny, I wouldn't say dramatically different changes, but incremental sort of updates on existing models and how we price and cost, which necessarily means a completely new business model.
So, do you think your clients are happy with the performance based pricing that you have? If I've understood you correctly.
No, I think it's a learning process for all of us, right? Including us. No, not, I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say everybody's been happy, everybody's been sort of immediately accepting of this new model. Some of the bigger clients especially tend to go back to, hey, but no, give us a breakdown as to how much of time will you spend on my account, right? How much of time is person X and person Y going to be spending running, every month on this retainer? Now, I'll tell you another reason why that doesn't work, right? Especially today, 2025, AI is eating up our sort of a significant chunk of our business.
Right.
How is any agency supposed to integrate AI and make things happen quicker when you're not incentivized to do things quicker? Because you're incentivized to charge per hour and spend more hours on work and therefore get the right. So I think it prohibits um, sort of the business model or prohibits agencies from being technologically adept, even this business model. So stuff like that. So it's been a learning curve. We're not, we've tried to sort of, there's a little bit of an education sort of curve as well that we're trying to take clients on that journey with us in terms of, hey, here's the reason why it's probably takes a significantly more longer time for us to close than most because of the change in pricing model and things like that. But I'd say overall, there's been a generally a very, very good reception to this. I mean, it can also be that because of the way that we price, it can also be that, hey, we estimated this to get over in 2 months, but in certain cases it doesn't. But it's not because of the way that our model structure. It's not like we can charge for that extra month or two anymore because we promised outcomes, right? So it can go both ways, Vishal, and it's an us to. I think, but what it does retain is a serious focus on here's the outcome you promised, now deliver it. I think that's what's helped.
Talented is built around the idea that talent is the industry's most valuable currency. How do you attract and retain top creative minds? And what's your process for that, if there is one?
I think we're one of the very few agencies, and it shouldn't be so, but we're one of the very few agencies that take our own brand very seriously. You know, um, and we want to take the brand seriously because it means something and it affects everything from who we are able to attract to our pricing power even, right? What kind of agency shop are you? What is the message to the world? What do you believe in? What kind of creativity do you want to display to the world? Who are you? And we try to sort of tell these stories in our way as much as we can. This is another opportunity for me to sort of share our talented story and our vision with the world. And if anyone's and if people are listening and they're attracted by what they're hearing and they see a sense of difference in, hey, these guys are trying things, they're doing differently, clearly interesting, and I want to give it a shot. It's all part of the brand. And we make no bones about that fact. I think historically we've been very bad at talking about ourselves and selling our own work, right? We do other brands very well, but our brands we barely give a shit about. So there's a lot of focus on that. And we try to do it in ways that are true to our real selves and not come across as pretending to be something that we're not or not yet. Um, and so I think stuff like that goes a long way. I think, and part of that storytelling is also how we operate internally. I think we've had incredibly good feedback from people that we meet for interviews, etc., as to how refreshing our policies and our generals, or even the hiring processes. All of that is part of the brand. How we want to treat people, how we want the hiring process to look like, and how we operate internally. So I think it's a sum of all of this that's attracted some of the best and the brightest. We barely have 10 to 15 openings every year, really. And it is always a tough decision for us because even the final round, I mean, let's say most positions go up to 2 to 3 finalists. And like, 90% of the time, Vishal, they're all absolute banging outstanding candidates. And it's so tough and it feels good, even though it's almost sad to say no. So we're in a lucky place right now with regards to hiring and talent. I hope that continues, man. And it's on us to sort of keep producing the work and prove it time and time again.
So, what are those key things you look for when hiring talent?
I mean, most of it is sort of public information on our handbook. So I encourage everybody to sort of go to handbook.talented.team. It's also on our website. Um, I think some of the things, most people have a body of work. My co-founder PJ had once said on one of the interviews earlier that we're a terrible place for freshers to come in and learn, right? Because you're expecting people to sort of, get into the action right from day one. At least I would say for now, because we're still a tiny agency.
By the way, I remember vividly the laudable initiative you guys did, encouraging designers to join for a workshop, make them actively part of the thinking process.
Yeah, Think yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Funny. We actually tried an internal experiment for that. Thinkadoer was like an internal program that helped designers sort of sell better and be better at the ideation process itself. Typically, you tend to think of them as more introverted in comparison to their copy peers. So it was an internal thing that we did first, and then we opened it out to the public. And there were people from other agencies taking breaks from their agencies to join. It was very nice. And I thought very sort of gracious of each of their sort of managers and employers to sort of let them to do so as well. So grateful for that. I mean, now that we're on the topic, I think a lot of us are also generally interested in academia and, like in and around advertising and sort of, um, and taking part in building the next generation of talent and stuff like that, right? So this sort of fits well within that agenda. Back to the talent stuff, I think most of us are advertising geeks. So happens to be your podcast name as well. We like fellow advertising geeks. I think some a phrase that we often find ourselves repeating internally a lot nowadays, and I think this is going to be the single biggest differentiator over the coming year for younger talent joining us is high agency. You know, we're looking for people with high agency, people who don't think things are happening to them as much as who take on the world and just make things happen for themselves, right? We like people who sort of show more gumption than what their designations suggest. Funny, we don't have designations, but who show more gumption than what they believe their level is. Like historically, I've grown up in an environment that sort of respects that. That's the environment that Siddharth cultivated at WebChutney as well. So it only feels right to sort of replicate that model because I was one of the successful experiments at WebChutney. Young people getting into rooms that they had no business being in, stuff like that. There are plenty of opportunities here. You will be put into rooms before you feel like you're ready for it. So it needs a certain kind of mindset and a self-belief to succeed at talented. So those are some of the things that we're looking for cues for when we're hiring, is this person going to succeed here? Do they have the necessary? And because most of them are good creatives, they have good bodies of work and they've done excellent work at their previous agencies, etc. But I think it's more the mindset that we're looking for is to, okay, in this kind of environment with a high talent density where everyone amongst them is operating at almost the highest level, will they succeed? Do they have the sort of the mental tenacity to sort of keep going and make use of the system? At least that's our current model, right? Like we're 65, 70 people. So that's what we're looking for now.
Gautam, you guys have earned great recognition with campaigns for Britannia, for Swiggy, for ClearTrip. What's your creative process for developing such terrific work?
I guess start with the culture. Um, every brand wants to, at least now, most of the work is social first, right? Like you might create a print ad or you might put something up on outdoor or television, but ultimately everyone's looking for validation and traction on social now, right? Um, and we might not have made the work for social media, but it is validation of good work now and the talkability and the
It's
virality.
going on LinkedIn. Everything's going on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I know a lot of people look down on LinkedIn but LinkedIn's actually incredible distribution, really, right? I guess our algorithm sort of um, at least narrow our focus to our immediate sort of advertising world and adjacent spaces and things like that. But I don't think we should discount the discoverability of stuff and the distribution power that LinkedIn itself has. Um, One of our pieces of work is still traveling, on LinkedIn, the Nature Shapes Britannia campaign. It launched in November, December. So yeah, and Jan is when the video went live. So about, yeah, 4 months old, and it's still sort of, so yeah, I mean, of course, it comes with all of the other, you know, uh, LinkedIn disclaimers. Um, Process, I don't know, man. So I guess respect the culture. I guess find the tension. Um, we try to sort of we want to, and because we've all grown up in a certain kind of advertising, and historically, I think also, at least in the last 10, 15 years, there's generally been commentary around advertising as to why the work is mostly made for other advertisers and not the real world, you know? And I think it's almost unfortunately become instinctive to the industry now that you have to go out of your way to fight that feeling right from the very beginning. um, Make sure that, hey, it's actually tracking back to strategy and not just something, not it's not just creative for creative's sake. So these are some of the things that we're looking out for. I mean, and I guess treat each brief as its own, which is why I'm a fan of our current focus on projects, because it allows you to focus on like a singular objective at any point in time, instead of diluting your focus on some of the daily deliverables and the social media posts every single day. You need to deliver two, three JPEGs every day, stuff like that, right? So yeah, I know it's a vague answer.
No, but I loved it when you mentioned tension. The consumer or category tension or whatever it may be. I think the rigor in the work we do these days is missing for a large amount of time. A large amount of work does not have the required rigor, and figuring out the tension does exactly that and more. So often we don't do great work because we aren't probably asking the right questions. So I'm glad you mentioned that. And in that same spirit, which campaign are you most proud of so far, and what made it special?
Man, I think there's a little bit of recency bias. I'm absolutely not going to call out one, but I'll do two, three. Okay. I think uh, for pure creativity, I think I fucking love Nature Shapes Britannia and um, generally the innovation that campaign's really shown, right from the art direction to the minimal copy. I think every single piece of those hoardings has been intentional creativity. I mean, I love it. Huge fan of the recent work for Britannia, again, with our collaboration with Avni Lekhara and her efforts at the Paralympics. I don't know if you've seen that one, Reshaping the Biscuits.
Of course, I
Uh,
have. Yes.
So, I mean, these two are, I mean, slightly more recent than, but I think what has made me truly happy over the last, 12 plus months also is our work on Urban Company, with the Dignity of Labor series. Not sure you've seen it. I personally think Urban
Seen
Company
it.
is a generational company in India, and it feels like they're finally getting their due of how they're changing, sort of blue collar employment in India. And we're very happy to be a part of 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 their efforts with their own sort of employees and their customers, and bringing those two cohorts, which are so important to them, together. And so we've done three projects with them as of now, all under the Dignity of Labor series: Chota Kam, Choti Baat, and Choti Soch. Please look them up if you haven't seen them yet. Yeah, I think if you prod me for one answer, I would probably say Urban Company.
And otherwise, your all time favorite piece of advertising?
I always try to be instinctive, and when someone asks me this, and my answer is always different. And right now, what comes to my mind instinctively is, have you seen? I think it was 2012, 2013, or something like that. The Guardian's Three Little Pigs. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why most of my favorite advertising seems like it's been done for newspapers and television channels and stuff like that. So this is a 2012 piece, and it was BBH out of London, if I'm not mistaken. And it was around the time that Twitter and the internet was disrupting news media in general. And the Guardian had to reevaluate its own role of their website, of what their social channels had to do in tagging along with their main product, which was a newspaper. This is almost 13, 14, 15 years ago. And what they did was they retold the story of the three little pigs. What's it, a fairy tale? I guess. No, not a
Yeah,
fairy
yeah,
tale.
classic fairy tale.
The
Yeah,
children's
I'm
story.
just seeing the campaign also, as you're
Oh, it
saying.
is incredible. It is
Yeah, yeah.
deep craft, and it is almost 13, 14 years old, and it feels like it could have just been yesterday, even now. And they retold that story through the eyes of what would happen if that story was set in 2012, how news media would capture it, and how Twitter would talk about it, and how the various perspectives and the points of view would be shared and unshared and debated on, and all of the tension that you're seeing on platforms like X and Facebook and Instagram right now would, translate onto every single news story. And it is fascinating. It is easily one of my best pieces of work ever. I mean, the mere fact that something that's old as that is the first thing that came to my mind is, yeah.
Something to read later on. You've spoken about putting people and profitability over billing. How does that philosophy influence your client relationships and the kind of work you take on?
Um, yeah, I mean,
Or has it influenced?
no, it has. It influences the kind of decisions that we take on a daily basis. It influences what kind of projects you say yes to and no to. So it's most certainly influenced. Um, we're very open about the fact that and I think it's in the client's interest as well, that our number one priority as a stakeholder has to be our staff, has to be the employees, has to be our talent. And if you give them the best sort of space for them to be their best creative selves, the direct beneficiaries of that are our clients. So I don't want to make any bones about that fact. And they are our number one stakeholders. I mean, like agencies typically say we're all about the work, but we're also equally about, employees. And I think it's played out well. I think the difference shows. I think I can feel it as the CEO of a company. Um, and one of the most difficult parts of my year, Vishal, is appraisal season. Because if you run a P&L, you know that you're operating with a certain sort of budget that you assign, and you got to, distribute it amongst people. And what do you do when, like, most people are performing at an incredibly high level? I didn't have that problem in my previous job, but here it's a good problem to have. So yeah, I mean, people, I don't know if I want to say people over profit. We want to be a highly profitable agency. We're a high margin agency. We're probably the most high margin agency in the country right now. And the fact that we're able to sort of balance that with seemingly well-intentioned internal principles and the way that we operate internally, I think is huge credit to us. So I'm sorry I'm not being very modest about this, but yeah, feeling good, man.
You don't need to be modest. Does that mean that sometimes talented would respectfully decline a project if you're not excited by the brief?
All the time, all the time, all the time. Um, and I think that's a privileged position for now. So I mean, we don't take that for granted for sure. And I want to say this with utmost grace and humility, that yeah, I mean, we have to say no a lot, in business interest. And like, if we had to say yes to most of the business interest that was coming our way, we'd be about 3 to 4 times the size. And that would have been incredibly high speed of growth, which we weren't really comfortable. I don't know how to grow at that speed, to be very honest with you. So it's also my limitation. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think most companies, I think, are most, at least the top 20, 30 agencies in the country right now, aren't really struggling to attract business interest. Yeah, but we say no a lot. I mean, funny thing is, I mean, I said this, just a point to add here is, we do this. We've been requesting for a pitch fee for most inbound requests, right? Um, the pitch fee is a signal that the client that you're talking to respects the creative process and generally sort of And their reaction to it kind of tells you a story right from the very beginning, right? So it's almost like one level of friction to sort of even come in and call an agency for a pitch. So, but we also work without a pitch fee. If the brand and the brief are super interesting, and there are some dream brands that we want to work with, right? And if they are super interesting and they come calling and knocking, they say absolutely no chance in hell we are paying you a pitch fee. We'll be like, dude, but I want to work in your brand so bad, I'll do it. So they're not codified principles, but yeah, that's typically how we sort of take those.
That's a great segue to my next question. How do you do BD as far as talented is concerned? Is it mostly inbound, or are there any dream brands that you intentionally reach out to?
Um, we've actually ridden our luck a little bit. We're trying to make the work speak for itself. So there is no sort of there's no outbound, right? Like there's nobody sort of picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, would you like da da da?" That doesn't happen. That needn't happen at this moment in time. Again, I want to say this with utmost grace and humility. We're privileged to be in that position right now at this moment. I hope that is a direct result of how our work has been able to do that bit for us. We love clients who come to us, call us, and say, "Hey, I've seen that piece of your work that you did for these guys, and we want to do something like that. And here's what we're thinking." Da da da. That's the best kind of client. Because that one level of, hey, the kind of work that you respect is also the kind of work that we want to create. So that whole that chemistry starts off in a sort of in a nice way. So a lot of it is sort of requests that come in for pitches, and it's mostly um, us figuring out if we have the bandwidth slash the time, the energy, or does it fit into our general business strategy, so to speak. We are not currently sized or prepared to take any and every kind of business, right? A lot of the advertising business also has a whole bunch of daily output that needs to be produced, factory style. We're absolutely not shaped it correctly to execute that kind of stuff as of the now. So those are very clear no's. And we take pitches very seriously, Vishal. Like there's serious effort, there's a lot of time and effort. I mean, it's not like the pitch fee covers the cost of the pitch, right? It's significantly more than the pitch fee. But what clients need to realize more and more, and I think they are nowadays, is that there is a cost involved to keeping aside a certain number of your people, and the opportunity cost of every pitch is very high, right?
The second part of my question was around dream brands that you'd like to work with.
I mean, I want to run this business instinctively also, I don't want to codify every single thing. And sometimes just doing things feels good. And so, but it has to be our call. I mean, if an entrepreneur can't make those calls for themselves, who can? So I think, yeah, that's how we're trying to think about these.
With your grid of companies and investments in ventures like Early, how do you see the future of agency models evolving, Gautam?
Yeah. So I mean, we don't necessarily think of themselves of the grid companies as investments. They're almost sort of companies that have been incubated within the talented ecosystem. The grid is another fun name for network, I think, right? But we want it very, very distinctively different. I don't want to say network because it brings all the baggage of the word network. So this is an absolutely different way to do it. The main difference is that we're incubating companies, but founders and entrepreneurs are at the helm. So the new thing, which is the first experiment that we took, is and I'll tell you the difference. Is run by this gentleman, ex-Swiggy, Tinder, social media head called Viren. He's the entrepreneur. He owns it. It's talented. Talented is the ecosystem under which the company is being built. It's styled as a subsidiary company of which Viren has skin in the game. He's put in the money as well. So I think it's that entrepreneurial skin in the game mindset that is the first singular biggest differentiator, as to why this is not just another subsidiary, right? Or we could have just done this thing as another unit within Talented. But I do think TNT, the New Things Founding Stories, I mean, it's funny. Viren used to work with us at Web Chutney at one point in time, and he's been a client later and things like that. And we were always interested because he seemed at the forefront of social more than most. So we wanted him to bring that brand of marketing into the scheme of things. So TNT's role is very, very different from Talented. While Talented is trying to employ the best creative minds in the country, TNT is trying to attract the best creators. We need to, I mean, the early hypothesis was that we need to stop pretending that the same team that can execute campaigns like Urban Company and the same creatives who can execute sort of television commercials and sort of campaign work are also the same creatives who are extremely adept at social media and influencer and creative work. They're not. They're not. They needn't be. Right. So one, understand the difference and let's try to think about it differently. Second point of difference is it's also not the same processes. How social media accounts need to be run are very different from how, let's say, the Urban Company example that I took earlier, right? How that needs to be run. Totally different mindset and processes and how you operate on the daily basis. Social media is a lot more instinctive. How can all of this coexist under the same processes and culture? It's difficult. So we knew that we wanted to establish it separately. We brought Viren on. He built the company from scratch. Every single person employed in TNT as at this moment in time are creators themselves. They've been creating for themselves. Therefore, arguably, they can also be creating for brands instead of the average advertising creative. So that was the TNT bet. Um, Early is interesting. Early is with one of our ex-bosses, Meghna Bhatt. She used to be chief creative officer at Web Chutney at one point in time. She was also my boss when she was branch head at Bombay Web Chutney. She's been sort of fractional CMOing for the last few years. um, Talented, was very interested, and because we operate on a completely different sort of level, but we're also very interested in working with younger upstart companies and startups, which might necessarily not be ready for the talented kind of creative work, right? But they need someone to sort of usher them into marketing and handhold them through their early baby steps of marketing and advertising. So that's where I saw the opportunity for a company like Early to come in, not staffed by advertising creatives or advertisers, but staffed by marketing folks, right?
Is that similar to what Spring is also trying to do?
Spring is an incredible company who are also investors. Not at all, really. Spring is doing it at an absolutely beast mode level, right? A lot of respect for all of them. Big fans. No, so this is not that. This is more, think of it as institutionalized fractional CMOs. Um, I don't necessarily expect um, Early and their brand or clients relationships to be long-term relationships. They probably handhold. It's for companies who are making their earliest steps into marketing, who are not necessarily ready for
So
a
this
big.
is part consulting,
It's pretty
part,
much consulting. Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty much
Okay.
consulting, right?
All right.
The scope of work wouldn't involve deliverables, creative deliverables, for example, right? Maybe they're the ones who help the company work with other agencies to execute stuff and prepare them for a stage of marketing where they need a bigger agency to come up. So we're very hesitant in using the word agency to describe Early too. So it's yeah. So the grid model is that where we want to attract bright entrepreneurs to come in and build their companies from within the talented ecosystem. We pride ourselves, me and my sort of the grid team that and the heads of each of our departments, HR, finance, PR, comms, etc. Some of the best in the business, and I think we've developed a very deep instinct for operational efficiency, and it feels like um, there will be a better chance for entrepreneurs in the agency business to succeed being built under an ecosystem that already facilitates so much of that work for them. And it's start itself with an operational efficiency mindset, right? Ultimately, and just them focus on being founders and do their thing. So that's what I'm hoping for the grid model.
Gautam, you were just talking about entrepreneurs, founders, and ecosystems. What do you think are the biggest opportunities and challenges for independent agencies in India right now, especially as large networks consolidate? Is this a golden period for indies? I've read a lot about how this could be a great time for independence as far as because as far as big holding companies are concerned, they are in on their quest to consolidate, get their house in order, etc., etc. Might take their eyes off the ball.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, I grew up in network agencies and I have a lot of respect for it. And it is a hard business. And personally, I think a lot of them are doing the right thing by consolidation because it is hard to survive in an environment that's rapidly changing. In fact, I applaud the ones that are taking the decisions early. You might look stupid now in the news cycle today, and people are wondering, brands are being lost and things like that. But it is unfortunately the reality of the world that we're operating in right now. But they're also all public companies. So there are the pressures of that as well. But I think the side effect of all of that is all of them are starting to look the same. They're all homogenized. Of course, there is one amongst the agency network itself. There's clearly one globally who's doing significantly better than the others. I think Publicis is doing very well internationally compared to the rest of them, right? 100%, it is a insanely huge opportunity for independence at this moment in time. I was just talking to PG the other day and saying, and holy shit, we were like like so timely in hindsight 3 years ago. And I mean, at that point in time, it was always we were forced into a decision to sort of separate. We grew up loving Web Chutney and everything that it stood for, right? But when you look back now, it feels like, holy shit, man, what incredible timing. You can feel it in the air. You can feel the sense of trust that didn't exist for clients with independent agencies up until a couple of years ago. You can sense it in the air right now, right? I think the creative renaissance that we've all been hoping for happens to Indian advertising is going to be led by the independent agencies, and that's purely because of structure and and even talent. It's clear that they want to work in sort of younger, more agile companies that let them be themselves and with flexible policies and not dictated by sort of New York and London and sort of homogeneous sort of rules and sort of policies, right? So I can feel it. I feel like I hope it sustains. But I do hope it is a renaissance that happens for creativity in general. I most certainly hope that the network agencies adapt and find the right shape and size. We would be better for it. I think it's all happening at a very tumultuous time. I really don't think I don't think our industry's taken the AI threat seriously enough, if you ask me. I mean, I'm not trying to be a peddler of gloom and doom, but I do think I don't think many of us are prepared for what's about to hit us over the next 12 months, generally in terms of processes that will change. And and the ones that are the biggest have the most to adapt, right? So from that perspective, at this moment in time, it feels like the independents will be way more ready for the next 24 months than some of the bigger companies.
Do you plan to remain independent?
Uh, I love the feeling of being independent for sure. Um, of course, there's always interest, right? And we're a shop that's doing relatively well. I mean, I won't hide that fact. There's interest every other quarter. But it doesn't, it to us, it feels like we're not even 10% through into our mission as to what we really wanted to do. And we're trying to shake a few things up here and there. And so we're not mentally ready yet, so to speak. And it feels like we're nowhere near our ceiling. Personally, again, I'm trying to be, I know it's a little immodest of me, but but I guess that's when you sort of, as an entrepreneur, you try to argue in favor of that decision, right? Okay, it feels like the ceiling's near. Maybe I should prep for, some sort of, no, to us, it doesn't feel like that ceiling's anywhere close. That's my very polite answer to your.
Got it. You were just talking about, there's so many things would change in the coming 12 months, or
Yeah.
or that's what your feeling is,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And we keep reading about and we keep hearing about how do we see AI and technology reshaping the creative process
Yep.
and agency business in the next few years. What's your view on that?
Right now, we're at a stage where we're using AI as a tool. I think there's some, I think the early stage of any new technology, there's a little bit of fear, right? Like there's a little trepidation. Oh, is it really going to change anything? I think lucky for us, I think we've been able to get over that fairly quickly. Um, it is it's become part of everyday vocabulary for us. There are very intense one-on-ones specific to AI that happen with employees through the company. There's a lot of budget and investment into new tools and processes that we've already adapted as of the last 6 months. It'll be silly not to. It is a cost right now, but it'll be silly not to. And if you need to appropriate that budget from elsewhere, I would suggest every entrepreneur sort of do that. So I am extremely optimistic in general, and I feel like it also matches with our ambition of operational efficiency, right? to protect our way of building this agency, which is, and to protect our culture in which we want to build it, it is in my selfish interest to be as lean as possible as a company. Because scale is sometimes the enemy and often the enemy of culture, right? So it feels like this is going to be one of our AI and what AI enables is going to be a friend in that general operation efficiency and our intention to remain our leanest possible version at all points of time. So that's one. And I don't think that I mean we're going to wait and see how this all plays out. And I don't want to speak with haste, but I think it's almost next to impossible that we hire anyone over the next 12 months who's not actively, deeply using AI in their everyday work. And I don't mean AI as like vanity creative exercises, right? Like, oh, we did an AI campaign. No, not that. I want to know how you're using it to bring efficiency into your everyday. How I want to know how you're making processes easier. I want to know how you're reducing your workload, getting more free time with AI. Those are the ones that add direct operational efficiencies to the business and therefore better the business, help us remain lean. And we can already see the effects of that in small ways. Like the other day, a client wrote to us saying, hey, you don't need to do the adapts because we've got our AI sort of thing to do it for us, 500 adapts for some campaign. We're like, great, thank you, you know? And but it's happening. It's also a threat, right? How far does this eat into your kind of work? I do think ultimately creativity will be the differentiator. And so it feels like some of our early principles will age well in the era of AI. When you're saying hire the best and the brightest creative people, etc. I'm hopeful that that sort of translates well into a world where that suddenly becomes the only differentiator, and not how like one of the biggest things that a young agency fights with is a big client coming to you and saying, "Hey, but will you be able to handle an account of this size?" You know, we've got how is that going to be a problem like anymore, right? Like especially in the age of automation of some of the factory deliverables and things like that. I would assume that the kind of stuff becomes easier to execute, and ultimately the focus goes back to creativity and strategy. So that's the hope. I think we're relatively well prepared, and it's an active conversation. We have a Monday morning all hands meet that we do with every single person in the agency. 10 to 15 minutes are kept aside purely for how people have been messing around with AI and experiments and just sharing with everybody else and things like that. So it's become part of our culture. It's everyday vocabulary. I wouldn't have it any other way, man. I think it's imperative.
What's the future of advertising as per you? I know it's an open ended question, and I'm open to getting an open ended answer from you as well.
And you're already seeing that slowly play out in the news cycles over the last 6 months. I think in a world of increased sort of homogeneity and like the buzzwords have been efficiency and optimization and things like that, right? A lot of that now remains the same. Like I mean, a simple way it plays out. How much can you differentiate through media plan and media strategy really, right? So that little delta between a great plan and a second best plan is not really much. How are brands going to be able to bring massive deltas between them and their competitors? It has to be creativity because the media strategy and the distribution and the efficiency stuff, etc., are all going to look the same. Everybody's got access to the same thing. Like even pricing wise, it's going to be barely 10 paisa here and there sort of difference, right? So again, which makes me optimistic for our industry. I think our best creative years of the industry are ahead of us. I think the immediate future is independent. That's the future of advertising. You'll see a lot more innovation and creative stuff, as you can see over the last 12 to 24 months, being driven more by younger, tighter, smaller shops. So all of that is exciting, and yeah, I think that's the future of creativity.
Will there still be brands looking to do social media work 5 years from now, or will it evolve to something else?
I think yes. I don't think social will be a silo as we're seeing it right now. In fact, I think quite the opposite. I feel like I think social will be at the heart of advertising sort of work. Currently, the mediums that we're focusing on are social media platforms, but um, uh, we need to go where the audience is. Uh, that's what manifests as social media platforms right now. So we tend to have briefs that say, "Hey, give me social buzz," right? I think that'll still, in spirit, it will remain the same. I think it'll, but we will have to look at it as a growth engine and not as just another creative manifestation and a tick box. I think the era of social is only like a they do something fun there as a follow-up to another larger campaign that you saw on television, etc. That's over. I think social is going to play a more important role in the center of marketing and creativity, which will inherently bring with it performance pressure. And I'm excited for that world. I think of that world of performance and social being a lot more creative. And I think there's a lot of experimentation that we're yet to see there. Um, and in fact, at TNT, at the new thing, this is something that Viren and the leadership group are really focused on sort of being right at the front front of.
Yeah.
That's how I see it'll evolve. Yeah.
I somehow keep thinking about wearables and the possible future opportunity they will present for brands and consumers alike in maybe more meaningful engagements. But it's interesting what you just said. Um, when you're working with your group of people, what's your leadership style, Gautam? And do you need to motivate teams to consistently deliver high impact work?
Yeah, I think motivation is my primary job. I have excellent client and brand leaders running this company for me. So they essentially run the business. I want to think of my role as keeping the agency ticking. That involves motivation, that involves deeply thinking about how teams are set up and whether the right people are on the right jobs and stuff like that. So a lot of my work is internal. A lot of it is one-on-ones. So motivation is most certainly part of my job. And I'd like to think of that as hopefully I'm doing it well, and that's sort of a part of my leadership style as to what people recognize. Um, I I'd like to think that I listen. We're trying to be a company that listens and get feedback, and we're trying to be um, very crowdsourced internally crowdsourced as to how we operate and take decisions. Um, from the simplest of things to the toughest of things, a lot of that is up for debate. And not just amongst the leadership group, but amongst mid levels and junior levels, etc. We've got a lot of forums where people of different levels come together and have direct access to the founders and things like that, right? So I think we listen a lot, and that's I want to sort of truly imbibe that as my leadership style because I think we'll be better for it. And I don't want this company to be built in a top-down way. Most companies start with sort of the very early espoused beliefs of their founders. Of course, it has to, right? So two of us co-founders sitting and figuring out over a year as to, hey, this is the kind of company that we want to build. Well and good. But your first 5 to 10 hires then sort of decide how that's executed and
It
if and
set the
when something
tempo for you.
becomes
Yeah.
yeah and if and when something becomes culture and how they hire the next 25 and the next 30, right? So we're trying to create multiple levels of leadership. I have There are 3 4 different leadership groups of different levels right now that we actively engage in weekly. I'm so excited by the potential of it, man. Like I'm imagining 3 to 5 years from now, this group, even if like 50% of this, who I consider some of our brightest sort of leadership group folks are represented, like about 30, 40 of them. Even if 50% of them stay and sort of grow into leadership positions here, how incredibly privileged am I going to be that I'm going to have a set of people who've grown up with us, sharing the same feelings and sort of cultural sort of similarities in how we want to operate and build companies and do creative work, etc. How amazing to have a homegrown leadership like that building our company. That is, I mean, yeah, I hope I have that privilege over the next few years.
If you could give one piece of advice to young creatives entering advertising today, entering our industry, what would it be?
I'd say don't wait to be ready. Just make something and send it into the world. Put it out there. Um, uh, don't wait to be briefed. Um, Take that punt. I think high agency, again, display high agency. If you really want something, go out of your way and make sure that the people who need to see it, who gets to sort of influence that sort of decision for you, see it. We see that a lot. That manifests a lot in how some of the funnest ways in which people get hired here, man. Like the most funnest sort of videos that are sent into us, and the most outrageous thing that they sort of do to sort of stand out. Very impressive. And I think that is the world, unfortunately, or fortunately, actually, that we're living in, where there's a lot of sameness. And so you need to go out of your way to sort of really stand out. And I mean, that is a kind of agency culture that we're also building, right? We want to do that for our brand. So why shouldn't the same rules apply to how we operate internally and how we hire and things like that? So yeah, just make something great and put it out into the world and make sure that people see it and be unabashed about promoting it and talking about it and owning it.
And finally, what's the biggest lesson you have learned in your last, what, 4 years now?
Three,
4 years
three,
of being an
three, three,
entrepreneur?
3 years and three
Three and a half
years,
years.
2 months and 20 days or something days of time.
Fantastic.
I'm going to
Wow.
give out the timing of when this podcast was recorded just by saying that. But
Yeah.
biggest lesson, um, I think in our line of work, the work is everything, but the people are everything. And yeah, we want to be unabashedly about our people and
So
becoming.
hold your dear people close. Hold them
Yeah,
tight.
hold your dear people close, and there's plenty of opportunities out there in the world, and build around the core team and create the best environment for everybody to do their best work. And hopefully, a lot of the things of how we operate internally and the policies, etc., are doing just that.
With that, Gautam, I want to thank you for being so kind with your time. I really do appreciate this. And for you to come on the first full fledged episode itself, it's been a privilege.
I truly appreciate that, Vishal, and this is another opportunity to sort of share our story with the world. So the pleasure is also mine. Thank you so much, man.
It is always good to start something with a bang, and I think this episode would qualify as such. It's a good feeling to get this one done and in the bag as I travel across Bali for my annual vacation. Next week from Seoul, South Korea, it will be the Indian App Geek, where the man they call the Points Guy arrives on the podcast. This is a new venture, so I appreciate the support. If you like what you heard, then do I even need to tell you what to do? Do that. Gautam is at GAUTXM on X, and I am at Vishal One Mehra. Until next time, keep your creative antennas tuned, your data dashboards ready, and your ad geek flag flying high. Stay quirky, stay curious, and keep geeking out.